Great. Appreciate that.
I believe, all right, I'm seeing the red dot. Yes, recording is on. And for everyone that is not aware, we are recording. If anyone is concerned about that, please let me know right now. Otherwise, I'll assume it's okay to proceed.
Good deal.
All right, time's up. We're going to proceed.
Go for it. All right, I'll leave it to you now. Go right ahead, Chuck. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you all for attending this presentation. I have to tell you, we're working with several Indian tribes and nations in Washington State, and Didgwalic has an incredible reputation. I understand you guys have developed your own system internally and have probably more experience than anyone in Washington State with electronic health records with the American Indian tribes. So I appreciate your consideration of 1011 as in your evaluation process. And with that, what I'd like to do is spend a couple of minutes to tell you a little bit about 1011. Then I want to jump over. We're going to, as closely as possible, follow the scenarios and make sure we cover all the information in the scenarios outlined and sent to me by Chuck Andrews. But let's also realize that there are going to be things that interest you. And as we move forward, don't hesitate when you hear me take a breath or pause or ask a question. If there's something of concern or interest, jump in, and we'll try to address as many of those, while we're on topic before we move forward. My plan is to give you a brief overview of 1011 and who we are and our approach to clinical records, then jump over to the application, familiarize you with the user interface, particularly around the homepage or the navigation screen. Next, I want to discuss chart structure and how we would define workflow, business rules, clinical rules, regulatory compliance for each program and the associated payers that go with that. And then we'll kind of get into some workflow. I have two subject matter experts, well, three actually, that are going to be joining me. Jonathan King is with our revenue cycle management team, as well as Phyllis Schreck. They'll be joining us to help with billing questions. Also, we are fairly new to primary care, and Jonathan is going to come over and give us a demonstration of the primary care, discuss how we drive that into a super bill, and answer any questions. Also, Kevin Margison is our project manager that handles our MAT implementations. He's going to be joining us in a little while. And both of them have limited windows. So when I see them coming in, I'm going to kind of move to those particular topics. So without any further ado, let me start with an overview of 1011, and then we'll get over to the application. So who is 1011? 1011 is a software and professional implementation and support services company focused specifically on behavioral health. We were founded in the year 2000 by two business process reengineering consultants who in their endeavors kept giving out advice, and it turned out more and more of our clients were in the behavioral health space. In our consultations, we're told great advice, particularly around streamlining workflow, meeting regulatory compliance challenges, and optimizing revenue. Great suggestions. Very few programs out there. If you will build it, we will buy it. Since then, we have grown from our first installation in 2006 in New York State, which is where 1011 is headquartered. We now are supporting approximately 200 organizations, about 20,000 users operating in multiple states, and supporting multiple service lines and program types inside of those program lines. More specifically, we support mental health and substance use disorder, both or all, including on the substance abuse side, detox, residential IOP, outpatient, and medication-assisted treatment, including inventory, dispensing, down to the pump level, DEA reporting, things of that sort. And we'll be giving you a demonstration of that a little bit later in here. By the way, we are part of an organization called Therapy Brands, private equity backed. We were acquired about 3 years ago, and Therapy Brands, we were the second acquisition. They've acquired 17 more companies. We were all acquired by a large private equity firm called KKR back in May. Our brands, we own 9 different EHRs, an e-prescribing company, analytics, revenue cycle management organization, a clearinghouse, e-prescribing. So if it touches behavioral health, we're striving to become a turnkey provider and a single source for as many of the different components you would need in your platform. Technology discussion, and I know we have some IT folks on here, but at a high level, we are a Microsoft shop. We developed our software using Microsoft tools and the .NET framework. We can deliver our software either on-premise, although overwhelmingly our customer base now is moving to a cloud-based solution, and we provide our software using Microsoft RDP or remote desktop services. Securely via the internet. We actually did not go with Azure from a pricing standpoint. It was more advantageous to work with Amazon, and all of our hosted clients are hosted with a bank level secure provider in Amazon. The software database is SQL Server. One of the nice things about our software is we do have a built-in integration engine into the system. So whether it's tying into lab companies, HIEs, RIOs, things of that sort, we have the capability to do that. One of the mantras that we follow in our database, and especially when you're supporting, multiple elements in an EHR, multiple service lines, and tying into a platform that could include e-prescribing, e-labs, things of that sort, we have a mantra that says you should only have to enter information one time. And with a single database, we have the capability to pull client information from intake and registration through program enrollment, supporting dual or multiply enrolled clients, all the way through to billing. It's fast, it reduces errors, and just as important when it comes to reporting, good fidelity of data. We're putting information in there. We work a lot with discrete data, and in discrete data, what we want to be able to do is, as much as possible, minimize the requirement to add narrative or free-form text, and as much as possible, be able to measure things in discrete terms. For instance, this is an example of a PHQ-9. It's a depression scale assessment, and it follows the scale of how is the client today in these 9 questions, and we measure it on a scale of 0 to 3. As we get into different forms in the demonstration, you'll see we really want to use radio buttons, yes and no's. We want to be able to, if we're picking, for instance, a referral source, I want to build or work with you to build a pick list of your referrings so that we can have, for instance, we don't want people, if I may enter, if someone is a client from Oak Street, I might spell it ST period. Jason might spell it STREET. And Chuck Andrews might spell it STR. When it comes to running a report and you're looking at your referral sources, you're not going to have good data because you're going to have 3 different areas. Using discrete data, drop downs, pick lists, things of that sort gives us good ability to report, not only for the I call it the blocking and tackling, but the who's late on their reports. But when you start looking at trending, dashboards, visualization, things of that sort, this takes that same PHQ-9 and allows us to see trending using that discrete data across locations, across programs, across therapists, all the way down to the client level. If you would imagine that this PHQ-9 was administered at intake, and your clinical rule said we want to do it regardless of their program at 30, 60, 90 days. We have the ability down to the client level to show them the improvement that we're making, at intake, 30, 60, 90 days. Great for enhancing patient care. Very, very helpful when it comes to quality improvement, negotiating with your payers for longer lengths of stay, higher rates, things of that sort. The idea with 1011 is to be able to take the information we have, taking that data, moving it all the way through the knowledge spectrum into wisdom to help run everything from client care up through management task. With that being said, let me show you what we're talking about. A couple of notes and concepts as we move forward. 1011's product, and it's called eCR for the electronic clinical record. eCR, first of all, is a role-based system. And that means two things. Number one, depending on what you do, you're going to have a slightly different view into the system. It will be configured differently. You'll be able to access the things that you go to most often and not have to see the things that you don't. Second, we're a credential aware, very important as we look at the payers and it with our business rules engine, the rule-based engine we're about to show you. It's very important if you have someone that may be an LCSW, but is not approved by a particular insurance company. We have rules in place that will stop them from signing a note or sending it out to be submitted as a claim. And we can configure a rule that says, please forward this to someone that's a supervisor or a provider who is approved by that insurance company. Things like that in the rules-based system are a big part of what we do. We will talk about business process and analysis in just a moment. A couple of other thoughts. We are a form-based system. I think you saw the first example in the forms-based system. We have a library that you can use that has over 3,000 forms that are available. Everything from assessments, treatment plans, progress notes, inventories for your transitional livings, inventory forms, patient belongings, things of that sort. 3,000 forms sounds impressive, but there's always a question of, do you have a form that will let me gather the information that our new payer wanted in that in the county that we're about to go into? And the answer is probably I don't. But we have a very nice tool. It's called a form lab that allows you to build your own forms, plug them directly into the database, and then almost immediately be able to report on the information gathered in those forms. The form lab also is more than just like a Microsoft Word where you build a form and put it in the database. We support advanced logic, including golden thread, or if you will, the ability to take information and pull it through, whether it's from patient details or if it's from another form that exists, to be able to pull that information from that information or from that location, and then be able to have it carry forward into the next form that you may need. Excuse me, Mr. Smith has just logged on. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so without any further ado, I'm going to jump over to the application, and give me just a moment here. Great. Okay, can everybody see the white screen with the big eCR in the middle? We good?
Looks good.
Okay, very good. Okay, folks, this is the homepage or the navigation screen, if you will. And I have started off this demo, or I'm going to start off this demo with a clinician view. I do want to tell you, though, I wanted to minimize, in the interest of time, logging out different personas because I'm going to be jumping from, gosh, intake to clinicians to billers to management. I didn't want to have to log out and log back in, so I've cheated the system. So even though my preferences are set for a clinician, I'm actually the system administrator. I will, as I kind of role play my way through this demonstration, try to give you a heads up so that I don't confuse you when you look up and say, this is not something a biller should do. I'll try to let you know when I'm changing personas, if you will. Okay, so with that being said, what we're looking at now is the home page. And a couple things. It's a Microsoft look and feel. We have the ability to open up multiple screens. We've got drop-down menus, hundreds and hundreds of functions, very powerful, very well-developed program. Microsoft look and feel, left mouse, right mouse programming capabilities. It's great to have all this functionality, but the last thing that we want to do is to confuse a clinician who's just trying to see who's on her schedule or who's about to or who wants to write a progress note. So what we have done is, based upon what you do, when you come to this home page, if you're a clinician, for example, instead of all those hundreds of choices, we're going to set up the things that you go to and use most often. We put up in this upper left-hand corner, we call it the day-to-day section. So, and like I said, I'm many people today, but if you were working up at the front office and all you did was register patients, check offs, work on scheduling people, those things that you would do 10, 20, 30 times a day would be up here, one-click access. You can always pick and choose and go through the drop downs. If you have the right or the privilege to be able to access additional functionality, it will be there. But the idea is very quickly, let's make it simple for your folks, depending on what they do, to take care of the next task at hand, one-click access to the most commonly used task. If, for example, you were the clinician, you may not be doing registration, but you may want to look at your caseload manager, any alerts that we need to let you know about, look at the calendar. You may need to write an order or do some lab work for your clients. Once again, the clinician information, depending on what you do, would be up here. Moving forward, as we go deeper in the demo, if you're the biller, there we have second and third levels of scrubbing that we can do, insurance billing that you work. So if you're a biller, the things you go to most often would be up here. Highly configurable. This is kind of set up as a demo, but please understand the idea here is to have a software that can mold itself around your clinical processes, your business processes, as opposed to making you change the way you work to work with the software that we have. Does that make sense to everybody? The next thing, and I mentioned earlier, we're a rights and privileges based system, and that means you determine who gets to do what. For example, if you would imagine that I'm Charlie the clinician here, and I've got the things that I take care of day to day, that's great. But if I'm also a supervisor, we can give the supervisor the ability to do even more. If they want to go in and update users, update credentials, maybe add a form to a chart, update insurance, things of that sort, they will have that capability. If you do not give them that capability, or you only want to issue it to them temporarily, that's possible too. Once again, we'll show you how to do it. We can always help you remotely set this up. Our goal is to enable you to work as quickly and at the speed of Didgwalic so that you don't have to depend on us. But once again, let's contour the system around the way that you do business. Reporting, we do have reports to keep individuals organized. At the program level, we have financial reports, census report, residential for your transitional program. You determine who gets to see what. They will, if they have the right or the privilege, be able to access that and complete those functions or use that functionality. Okay, a couple of other things on the home screen. And because I am many people today, I will kind of explain what I'm doing. We call it the My Client list, but it's really the caseload manager. And I'm going to start off, as I mentioned, I'm the system administrator. So what I have done, and by the way, we set up our episodes of care, we call them programs, and we define everything from the workflow to the information we need to gather to the payers according to those episodes of care or those programs. I right now am the system administrator, and I can look across 565 clients. I see the different programs. I can see who the clients are, what their status is, and the last time that the status changed. I can further filter it down. If I wanted to do it by program, I could narrow it down by that. If I was, with a different role, I could narrow it down by that role. But the idea is very quickly to get a look here and then go to either to patient details or to open the chart, etc. Before I do that, let me also point out that we can slice this data in a couple of different ways. Say, and Chuck Andrews, I'm going to go to you. You've been my point man. Does the Wellness Center have multiple locations, or are you doing work in the community, or how? What is the physical environment of the agency?
I know that there's a main clinic, and Jason, keep me honest here, I believe you guys have a smaller location, and you may do some on-site work.
Yeah, that's right. We have a main clinic, we have a wellness center, and then there will be a campus expansion that will move us more into like a residential place. So, off the top of my head, there's, three kind of main areas.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, so Jason, if I'm a supervisor, which I am right now as a system admin, I could go out and say, I want to take a different look at my caseload here. And in this case, I've said, show me by location what I've got going on. And this now it breaks it down by the different facilities, who the clients are, what program they're in, and what their status is. If I wanted to look at by clinician, I guess you guys are going to guess who my demo user is, Charlie, the clinician here. But if I need to do some workload balancing, being able to take a look very quickly helps me. Let me change roles now. Forget about all the management and overall view. I'm just Charlie, the clinician, and I want to see what I've got going on today. And now I could even set this up as my default on my caseload manager so that when I come in here, I can see by program who my clients are, what their status is, etc. Okay, so one of the things that I can do also as I work in here, and you guys can't see it remotely, but I'm going to take I could click on this with my left mouse and it would open up the chart, but I can also, I'm hitting it with my right mouse. And what it's doing now is it's giving me the choice to click once again and open the chart, or to go up into patient details, or to see if I've had worked with this particular client before. Remember, I said we identify our program, or our episodes of care are identified as programs. And in this particular case, as I look at Billy blank chart, I can see that he's been in here numerous times. Case management, community services, he was in for a DUI program. I can further see that he's in referral status and the date that he came in referral. I can even drill down and find out what clinicians were involved in treatment with Billy. So if I've got him in for a new program, I may want to collaborate with them. But this is, once again, let's turn data into knowledge and enable your clinicians. This is a very quick way to find out what's going on with this client. If I needed to admit him to a new chart or open a new chart in a new program for him, I could do that very quickly. Also, as I look at Billy, I can, if I want to go up to patient details, click of a button will allow me to open up patient details. And in here, I can see in the patient details, demographic information, additional demographic information. I can get into race, ethnicity. I can add, and we'll work with you to build the pick list. So if you are primarily, you want to identify a client that's come in as an American Indian, but you further want to designate them as Didgwalic or Squinomish or Yakima, you can build those. It should be able to really help you in your reporting. Also, do we have all the information you want? No, but from a patient detail standpoint, we do have user definable fields. You can have up to 50 data elements that you can build into your patient details that you can capture in there. Also, just quickly as we're moving along here, we can see that there's other information for vaccines, immunizations, things of that sort. There are lab results. And by the way, there's ways to see lab results in multiple places. A lot of what you're going to see in 1011 is the ability to very quickly to get to the next task you want to do. You'll find, for instance, I could go to e-prescribing right from patient details, or I could do it from a form or multiple forms. You'll see this throughout the system. Once again, we try to put logic in that makes it, if you're in a particular screen and you oftentimes may have to go to an area, let's make sure we have a shortcut up there for you. As other things in here, and if you would imagine that, let me just change roles altogether. Let's say I'm at intake, I'm bringing this client in, I'm grabbing their demographic information, but I want to get their payer information. I can go in and get their payer information, usually defaulting to them as a responsible party, the ability to add payers, medical record numbers, payer numbers, copays, things of that sort, and then maybe prioritize who is the primary payer, secondary payer, because we do support cascade billing in there. So we'll get more into billing a little bit later, everything from the payers we just talked about to authorization management, things of that sort. But the idea is, depending on what you do, very quick access to the thing you may, the next task at hand is what I like to call it in there. With that being said, I want to talk about one more thing on the homepage, and then I'll come over and we'll talk about the chart, and then we'll get into scenarios after that. So the thing I want to talk about, and earlier I mentioned that we are a rules-based system. It is one of the differentiators of 1011, very, very powerful rules-based engine. The idea of what we're trying to accomplish in here is, number one, streamline workflow for your staff, depending on what they do. We want to make it very simple and straightforward for them to take care of their next task. Two, there is a lot of regulatory compliance, especially as I have learned in the last few months in the state of Washington with the American Indians, whether you're native, non-native, whether it's Washington, whether it's, Apple, I want to say Apple Care with its direct Medicaid, or through your MCOs, whether you're an FQHC or not, you guys have got a lot of variables in here. What we do, and one of the coolest things about 1011, we grew up in a managed Medicaid environment over in New York. They were one of the first states to get it, and they are rigorous and granular in their requirements. So we have adapted to them. We're finding that it works well in the different states that are adding managed Medicaid. Let me give you an example. Let's say that I am Charlie the clinician, and I just come out, I've been working in the morning, and I just came out and I opened up my alert manager. I can see there's 4 different alerts. There are some form and date alerts, some instant alert, instant messages, lab results. But I want to talk about the form and date alerts, and I want to go back to the payers, because if we're fortunate enough to work with Didgwalic, here's what's going to happen. We're going to bring our project managers out. We're going to sit down with you. We're going to spend a couple days out there because we want to understand what's going on. Tell us about your programs. Tell us about your workflows. Tell us about your payers. So if you would imagine that I had an outpatient substance use or your MAT clinic, we're going to say, okay, we get it. We know how. We'll talk about the business workflow and the clinical workflow, but let's talk about the payers. Who are your payers? Well, Magellan is our big payer, or Beacon is our big payer. And we'll say, okay, what are their rules? Well, they say, well, they'll fund for our Medicaid clients, they'll fund treatment, but we've got to do an initial assessment. If they give us an auth, we need to do an assessment in 3 days, and we have to have a treatment plan in place within 7 days. And if we write a progress note, it's got to be signed off in 48 hours. Different payers have different rules. Do you guys, are you familiar with this? Do you guys run into things like this with your payers?
I'd defer to Devon or somebody from billing on that question, but my general sense is yes.
What was the question again, sir? Sorry.
You got a lot of rules around your payers and what they need from you. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So now, excellent. So what I'm going to suggest right now is, I'm Charlie the clinician. I just got out of my last appointment. I came here. What a demo system. I have a gazillion alerts, but one of them is a regulatory compliance alert. If you would imagine at the front desk that we made an admit decision and did an intake on Frank Fullchart, and we assigned this to me, Charlie the clinician, this alert would show up. This is an instant alert. I'll give you an example in a minute, but also on the full scale alert manager, I can see here that I've got an alert about Frank Fullchart, something about a treatment plan. I'm taking my mouse. It does a mouse over, but I did a right click. And what's it say? It says, hey, your new client, Frank Fullchart, I need a treatment plan from you, Charlie, and it's due in 30 days. Of course, what we have found out from our other customers is they're clinicians, while great at giving treatment, are not necessarily great at taking care of their paperwork. And if we let them wait 30 days to get the treatment plan in place, they'll usually start it on day 29 or day 30. So the program managers say, I don't want to wait that long. Wouldn't it be great if I could add a warning that said, I don't want this to wait 30 days. If it's not done after 10 days, send them a second alert. So what we do is not only have an alert for regulatory compliance, but we have what we call a best practice alert that we combine. So what happens? I'm Charlie. I want this to go away. I'm just not going to deal with it. I'd hit the delete button. Don't you worry. It will come back tomorrow morning at about 2 a.m. It'll refresh on the list. But if I don't do it at the 10th day, it will send me a second alert. And if you so choose, we can actually escalate an alert up to Charlie's supervisor that says, hey, Charlie really needs to complete that progress note. So we help keep the individual organized, and we help the supervisor keep them organized. So now if you would imagine, I'm Charlie, the clinician. I don't want my supervisor yelling at me. I could go to that client list. I could look up the patient name. I could go to his chart and write the treatment plan or finish it. But wouldn't it be great if I could just click one button? It will open up the client's chart. It will open up the treatment plan to the place where I left off. Let me go through and complete that treatment plan. Nice. We'll get into some more examples as we move forward here. So that's kind of an idea of how we bake in the business rules, in this case, a regulatory compliance rule that tells me what to do and helps the supervisors help those clinicians stay in compliance. We have some other alerts too. We have instant alerts. If you would imagine, for instance, that you're working at the front desk and you check in a client. I know I was working with Johnny Doe earlier. Please forgive me. I do a lot of demos and I should have cleaned this thing up, but I didn't. So if I worked with, say, Johnny Doe, I could go down here. I can sort it and filter it a different way or several different ways, but I can come over here and I'm looking at Johnny Doe, and there's one down here and I just moused over. It says, hey, Johnny Doe, we checked him in at the front desk and we sent you an instant alert to meet with him. But you know what? I'm going to send you another alert that says, hey, remember Johnny Doe? He's checked in. By the way, Charlie, I need you to create a progress note. And to help you, it's for this date, at this time, for this type of a visit for chemical dependency. And now with the click of a button, I can go to his chart. And if I'd selected that form, I'd go right to that form and be able to fill that out. Can you see how that works? We'll get into some more examples later as we go along. I'll discuss the chart in just a moment. We have instant messages that will let me communicate back and forth with people securely in a HIPAA compliant manner. We can also configure the lab results to come directly into the providers or whoever you designate that wants to see the results for a particular client. We also have it set up so if you open up a chart and they have a lab result that's come back, you can be alerted so that you can go very quickly and view those. We'll look at that in just a moment. Okay, so with that being said, I'm about to go over and describe the chart and how we develop charts with you. Any questions before I jump over to that? Okay, so by the way, I'm going over what I'm showing you here is called dynamic filtering. The IT guys know this, but basically it's like your own personal Google search engine. It allows me to start typing and it starts narrowing it down. So now all the Does that may be a client in my system are right here. I picked Johnny Doe. I'm going to left click on the button. It's going to open up the chart. And this is a sample chart. I want to talk about the anatomy of the chart and also how we build it. So with that being said, in the 1011 chart, the ECR chart, there are 3 different areas. The white space, and I call it the white space up here, or the chart header, if you will. The idea is as soon as I open up the chart, at a glance, I want to see what's going on. In this particular case, I know my client. By the way, I could hyperlink. I could click with my left mouse and go to his patient details. But in this particular case, I see the medical record number. What program is Johnny in? Demographic information. This is called a breadcrumb. It lets me know what his status is, where he is in the for this episode of care, his continuum of care. He's still in referral right now, so I don't have a lot of information in there. But let's say that Charlie, the clinician, was not there. His supervisor came in. Very quickly, they could see demographics and other information about this client. Over on the right, now we're kind of getting into the meat of the matter here. We talked about having 3,000 forms, and we talked about having your episode of care being defined as a program. Well, once we define what that program is, we're going to, as part of our business process analysis, work with your program supervisors, your super users, and say, okay, so this is your mental health program. How do things run around here? And in our couple of days together, you're going to say, well, for this program, the first thing that happens is we do an intake, and then we assess them, and then we create a treatment plan, and then we document against that, and eventually we'll discharge them. And so we'll say, okay, you know what? We've got a couple things on intake. And do you need a consent? Yeah, we need a consent. Do you want to know where the patient came from? Yeah, we do. So out of our library of 3,000 forms, we're going to pick the ones that you need for intake. We're going to define what the workflow sections are for each program. Your medication assisted treatment may be significantly expanded beyond the sample that I've created here. But we'll define what the workflow segments are, put the appropriate forms in there so that every time you have a clinician you sign a client to, he opens up that chart, he's going to know what to do next. Here's what it looks like. I need, let's say I'm an intake, and I remember I said about pulling that information through. Information I gathered about Johnny populates in here. I may want to document why he came in, alcohol abuse. I may want to type in the insurance, but if I build a pick list, I can go ahead and pick that. And let's say this came in from family court, in case you have a DUI or some sort of a program over there. And we're going to save that information. Well, it could be, and this is all defined in your business process, but we'll say, how do things work up front? And go, well, we'll do an intake, and then we'll go ahead and schedule them with an available clinician. In that case, we can go right to a schedule. We can open up the scheduler and schedule them for an appointment. Well, it could be that your business process says, no, intake doesn't do that. What I really want to do is assign them to a particular clinician, and notify that clinician, and then let that clinician come up, meet with them, and let the clinician handle the scheduling. However you want to do it, it's pretty flexible. We can go to it right from a form, or you can go ahead and just forward that information to the clinician. Now, if you will, if you would imagine what I just did was from the front desk, what I'm looking at now is an instant alert manager. It's kind of like Facebook Messenger. You know, you can message people back and forth. But in this particular case, you can see that little green dot I had down there is now turned into a big white sticky note with a yellow note on it. And I can look at this and say, what have I got here? You've been assigned a chart. Now I'm Charlie, the clinician in the back. I've just been assigned a chart. I'm going to go up there. I'm going to go meet with Charlie. I'm going to say, okay, Charlie, let's go ahead and schedule you. So there's a lot of different things. You define who gets to do what on here. I could go ahead and do that scheduling from there. But this is how we start engagement with the client and define around your workflow, around your business process and your clinical process. Last thing I want to talk about here is on the referral form, or as you saw me go to work on that referral form, you see how it crossed out here on the left? That is because when I started working on that form, it crossed out over here to show that I've worked on it, and we start filling in the completed chart over here. So as this goes on, well, let me just give you an example. I've got another client in here. It's Reggie Van Dusen. So I'm just going to tie that in. Van Dusen. So I can come over here and show you. Now this chart is the same thing. You can see in this case, I've got a consent for treatment. I've already done an assessment, treatment plan, and progress notes. That has started filling in over here on the left. As your client fills it out, you've completed on the right. You can actually shrink that down and just work, because now I have a consent for treatment. But if I want to write a new progress note, I can see the date of service, whether it was an assessment, an indirect note, even more forms that I wrote in there. In that case, let me just go up to 8 forms. I don't know how many I have completed, but I could expand that out even further. But if I want to write a new progress note, I just click a button, and now I can go in and start writing on that progress note. The idea is I started with a table of contents specific to that program that my folks are going to follow every single time. That completed chart comes over here. By the way, you can have multiple people assigned to that chart. And if they have been assigned to that chart, they will be able to see what you have designated that they can see. And by that, I mean they can see the entire chart. They can see certain forms in the chart. You can restrict who can see what, down to the provider, all the way down to the form, whether they can view it, edit, and even destroy forms, which is really a super user, you know, a special circumstance. Only very few people get that. But that's the way that the chart structure works. Any questions on that so far?
Can you show us a little bit of a treatment plan?
Yes, I will. And I'm going to show you the treatment plan. And after that, I'm going to turn this over because Jonathan King, Jonathan, I don't have all the attendees. Are you on this call right now? Then I'm not going to give it to Jonathan. But when he comes in, I'm going to go ahead and bring him in. Okay. Yes, Davon? Question?
Yes. Can you import templates?
Are you talking about like
About a template document, like you have the treatment plan and progress notes. Can you import from a set of templates that are just
I don't, you would have to manually enter the templates into our system. I can't support the data structure of an external template, but yes, you can build templates and yes, they can be imported into every note. For example, let me see if I just have something real quick to show you. This is, so as I work in here, do I have one? Wrong progress note. Okay, say for instance, I'm working on this progress note right here. And if you had developed some templates, you could pick and choose those. And if you wanted to accept that and bring it in, then that would automatically come in. Or let me see one that may have a little bit more information in there. Say if you wanted to, I'm just grabbing anything in here, but I'm going to overwrite that, and that would pull all of that information in there. So if you build a library of templates, either at an enterprise level or the individual, they have pet phrases or things that they like to use, and they don't want to have to consistently retype those. Yes, you can use those templates, but you will have to build those yourself. I can't import them externally. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did it answer it to your satisfaction?
Yes, sir.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So let's go back to treatment plan. And one thing I want to talk to you about is, are you familiar, are your clinical folks familiar with the term golden thread? Okay. So over in Massachusetts, about 8 years ago, they created a thing called the Computer Record Initiative, excuse me. And one of the things they wanted to do was to be able to more effectively defend their diagnoses during audits. And the idea falls right into 1011's mantra of you should only have to enter information one time. The concept being, wouldn't it be great if I had an audit come up, if they said, why did you write this progress note? If you could say, well, I was working in goals that I developed in my treatment plan. Well, where did those goals come from? Well, when we assessed the client, we had some needs and we prioritized them, and we used that to create the treatment plan. This is what happens during audit, and they say, prove it. Well, this is an example of how we do it. This we're about to open is a comprehensive assessment. By the way, we have dozens and dozens of assessments that you can use out of the box as part of the library. Or if you want to build your own, we'll show you how to build your own. You do not have to be a software engineer. We have what's known as a WYSIWYG, or what you see is what you get, form developer. You can develop very similar tools that will thread information from patient details to the assessment, and from the assessment, those prioritized needs, to the treatment plan, all the way through to the progress note. Let me show you how it works. This is an example of an assessment, and we try to avoid roll and scroll for our clients. So we broke everything down into tabs, whether it's education, school, housing. As I work with a particular client, I could work in this case with education, and then I can move sequentially over into the school, into employment, unless my client doesn't want to move sequentially. And if they tend to bounce all over the place, they want to talk about suicide, you can also go from tab to tab and move across here. Drug use, suicide, tobacco use, things of that sort. So one of the things, by the way, I want to talk about very quickly. Do you see the green check marks? This is, and we talk about regulatory compliance and the rules, and whether it's your accreditation agency, whether it is your payer, whether it's just the way that you want to run things at Didgwalic, whatever becomes mandatory, we identify with a green check mark, your people can save the information, but they can't sign it, or we call it lock the form, unless they have completed the information that you said was mandatory. I've got a lot of stuff in here. I'm just going to try to go to signatures right now and sign this with the staff signature, and look what happens. It's almost like if you folks have ever tried to buy something off Amazon and you try to use your credit card and you forget those last 3 digits, you know what? It takes you right back to that screen and says, hey, you forgot something. We do the same thing. We take them back to the screen where things are missing. We highlight it with a red asterisk and we ask them to complete it. And we will continue to ask them to fill out all the information that you, as part of our business process, determined was mandatory. Like I said, it could be you, your accreditation, or your payer. Whatever the rule is, let's make sure your people follow it. You determine what best practices are. We implement it in the system and help guide your people into compliance. So anyway, with that being said, in the assessment we're working through here, we worked in a lot of different areas. And at some point, I want to come in and prioritize those needs. And one of the things that we'll put in here, I'm just going to know, I'm not a clinician, by the way, but I want to show something that's later on. By the way, you can decide, you build the pick list. Is this something we want to work on now, not work on now, kick it down the road a while? Do I need to send it out, or is it innate, not applicable? We make that decision. I go ahead and say that I'm not going to try to assign it because there are just too many things. But I want to get forward from that assessment that we just looked at into the treatment plan. Now, this treatment plan shows plan info. You can see what has to be mandatory. Is it initial or review or revision? Do we, is the diagnosis mandatory? Can I add a secondary diagnosis? Yes, I can. I can hit the drop down and scroll through this. But if I just wanted to start typing on it, I can come in here, and once again, we use that dynamic filtering, and I can add a secondary diagnosis in there. As you mentioned before, is there information in the library? Could I pull that information in? Yes, I can. So anyway, I would add the diagnosis. I would put the goals in here. But let's say I wanted to add a different goal. I want to go ahead and add a new one, and I wanted to take and assess need and bring that into my treatment planning. And please forgive me, I've got quite a few in this demo, but let's say goal number 6, it was something about getting to know Didgwalic. I can't remember exactly, but wouldn't it be great if I could just click a button and there it is from the assessment, the prioritized need is right there. And now I've threaded that information into the treatment plan. And from there, I can go ahead and maybe select a goal that I want to work with him. Let's maybe reduce the anxiety of working with the Didgwalics, kind of like I felt before coming in here. But I could go ahead and fill that out. I'm not going to save that for right now. I want to get forward to the progress note, because now when I go to write a progress note and I've established those goals in the treatment plan, and I come in here and it's time for me to write a progress note, it requires me to say, who are we? What's the program? What is the location? Well, actually, that's not required, but you could add the location in here. The service code or visit type, if he was in here for an assessment, I would do that. And then I could go into my goals and objectives. And I believe what you will see are the goals that we had established in the treatment plan are now able to pull through here into the progress note. And I can go and write that progress note. And then when it's time for me to write a signature, a couple things. Let me make sure I got everything, all of these things. By the way, I don't have any time on the duration. I can drive this right off the scheduler and it will default to the scheduled start time, but I'm required to put how many minutes that I spent with them. So let's say that I'm going to back this up to yesterday. I take liberties in a demo that you don't usually do in a normal scenario. But I get in here and now I've got the session info. I've got all the mandatory information. Let's talk about getting a signature. You've seen the golden thread where I pulled info from assessment through treatment plan. You saw me just drop it into the progress note. Now let's talk about signatures and signature logic. I can get the signature from the individual by clicking a button. It's asking me to do so many things in here. Well, give me just a second. This is not clinically accurate, but I'm trying to get through. I'm trying to get a patient signature. And if I got that, in real time, I can get the signature from my client. By the way, I can use the signature pad like the Topaz. If you have an Android or maybe a Microsoft Surface laptop, you can use your stylus. If you have an iPad, you can use your finger. Well, I have a finger, but I can also use my mouse. So I'm getting the signature right here. So I would get that signature. Now, it could be that if I have done everything because we captured everybody's signature that's a clinician or a provider before go live, if I have filled in all the information you required, including all those things that had the green check marks, I could click that button. It will bring in my signature. However, let's say you have a probationary employee, or that example I used earlier where I didn't, let's say I'm a provider, but I'm not approved by the insurance company. We put the rules in there that say he cannot sign that. All the clinician could do would be to route that. And let's say there are 2 or 3 supervisors that met that criteria, because by the way, we are credential aware. I would set it up so that instead of all of these in my demo system, I would set this up to have only those 2 or 3 people. It would route to them. As a clinician, I've done all I'm supposed to do because I can't sign that anyway. I'm going to go back to my client list. I'm going to see my next person in here. But if you would imagine every 10 to 20 seconds, we are going through and we are updating that list. If I had put Charlie the clinician in here, it would come up, and now switching roles, I'm Charlie the supervisor. I'm Charlie the clinician that is approved. What? I've got an instant message. What the heck could this be? Hey, I need you to sign this progress note for Reggie. I need your signature. It was routed from the clinician, and now I can go in, open up that progress note. I can add it as a supervisor, and now I can sign this. And as I sign this information, I had that as not applicable. Yeah.
I'm sorry, quick question for you. So, do we have the option of adding any number of additional signatures? So for example, if we had a treatment team goal, we wanted to have several clinicians from different departments sign off on it. Is it customizable in that way as well?
Absolutely. So this example is just showing the patient and staff and signatures. And I have multiple signatures, but let me go back. I think in this treatment plan, I've got, please let it be there. Let me go to signatures. Okay. So I've got, you saw this earlier. Now I can get the client signature if it's required, the clinician's signature if it's required. And then a couple things to answer that question. I can have multiple people sign, in this case, a physician. I can add additional signatures, additional staff, QA, whatever that I want in there. You can send these out and we can set it up so that they can sign and then route to the next person. Or you could have it, big bang where everybody gets their signatures. I'm not sure how the business process is. And it may differ from program to program, but however you want it set up with as many signatures as you need, we can configure it to meet the requirements of each program. I don't want to say the eccentricities, but the nuances of each program. Would that work for you?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that kind of gives you an idea of the golden thread. Kevin Margison, are you on the call by any chance?
Yes.
Well, I would like to now turn over, now that you have a general overview of how things work. We talked about medication-assisted treatment. I'd like to introduce Kevin Margison. Kevin is going to give us a run through of medication-assisted treatment, everything from inventory to dispensing, and talk about reporting. Kevin, do you want me to give you the screen?
Yes, please.
I have stopped sharing. Can you take it over?
Yep.
Excellent. Cool. All right. You have the floor.
3.
Say hello to everybody, Kevin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kevin Margison. I'm frozen behind here. What's going on? I'm locked up across the board. I'm going to stop the share here. Let's see what's going on. Did it free up? Okay,
Heck,
it did free up. What's that?
it's a nice picture of the Bronco. Yep, it now freed up.
All righty. My name's Kevin Margison. I've been with the agency coming up on 9 years now, senior project manager, primarily responsible today for the methadone product line, from implementation, product enhancements or recommendations for enhancements, and so on. So we're on time here. What we have about an hour and 3 minutes left. As Chuck stated, what's that?
Hey, Kevin, let's leave Jonathan some time. He's going to be talking about primary care a little bit later.
Okay, so 30, how am I, give me a
30's
time frame.
good. 30's good.
All right. So I've taken the liberty for several things that are out there. I've already set up patients, and by setting up a patient, that means that they have a chart and there is a medication order and schedule already created for the patient. In order for a patient to receive medication, a chart must be created. A order must be written. I'll just show you what's here. An order for Sally here. Sally has an amount for 92 milligrams. Our demo is going to be with methadone, hydrochloric, or an oral solution or liquid methadone. It could be whatever medication that you're providing, whether it's liquid or tablet methadone or Suboxone, whatever that might be, buprenorphine. So an order must be written. Once the order is written, then a schedule must be established. And the schedule states when will the patient be coming into your clinic, on what days. And what days are a clinic visit. In this example, Sally will come Monday through Friday, and Friday she would receive a clinic visit and then 2 take-home bottles, because it's been indicated as Saturday and Sunday being take-home bottles. Sally here has 1 dose, not a split dose. She's got 1 dose of 92 milligrams. If Sally was to receive 2 bottles on a particular day, or a drink clinic visit and a take-home bottle, they would be split up. We also have time frames to help you manage when those patients are coming in and reinforce with those patients. So for example, right now, these are set up as 8 to 5 because they're used as a demo, but Sally might be the 6 to 7 a.m. group, and you'd like her as best she can show between 6 and 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. or whatever that time slot might be. Okay. On our overrides tab, this could also be called tapering protocol. Here's where we would set up a tapering protocol. We know that most patients, once they're new to your agency, or maybe they've missed X amount of days and they're being reset, if you will, or tapered back down, here's where we would do that. So if the patient's on a detox and you're going to start them at 80 milligrams and detox them 5 milligrams every 3 days, you would do that here. If you're starting that patient on 35 milligrams and you believe you're going to get them to about 80 or 90 milligrams, again, increasing by 2, 3, 5, 7, whatever you amount, over X amount of days, you would build that here. For sake of time, simplistic, what I have set up, most of these patients are a simple clinic visit, same amount of medication every day. So we have a patient that has already been, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 patients that already have orders and schedules already written for them and prepared and ready to go. We start the process from a business process flow with a check-in, a patient check-in, if you choose to use that. So I'm going to close this screen behind here just to demonstrate more appropriately. So here I can search either by medical record number or by patient name. Normally, our search windows start to build as you type. In these instances, they do not, deliberately, because the check-in desk could be a more forward desk and there's PHI associated. So medical record number is a little bit more preferable if you're looking to save that or prevent that from being seen. Sally White comes up in the list here because she's scheduled to be here today. Over here, like I stated before, we have our time frame. She's scheduled to be here between 8 and 5. Right now is 3:02. It comes up in green. So this just indicates, is Sally in the time frame in which we've asked her to be here? There's no block or prevention. It would be a reinforcement. Sally, please try to make it during your time frame. Okay. The second box down here, I don't have anything listed. The second box would be any scheduled appointments for Sally today and going forward. And the third box down here at the bottom would list if there's a random toxicology for Sally. Maybe it's a breathalyzer. Maybe in the first 30 or 60 days, they get breathalyzed either before they see the nurse or at the nurse's station, or it might be a urine test. The purpose of the check-in screen is to indicate that Sally, today you can go directly to the window. Sally, don't forget you have an appointment after you receive your medication. Sally, you may have to go see the nurse for whatever that reason might be, right? That's our design. The last is a hold. Sally comes up white here and there is no hold in place over here. I'm going to do one real quick for Sally just so that you can see. So Sally, holds can be put in place by a clinician or anyone, right? So in this instance, I'm going to add a hold and I'm going to say that Sally missed an appointment and I want Sally to come see me, right? So the hold's now in place. And I'm going to close that chart. Now let's research for Sally. Now that Sally comes up, she comes up red and there's a hold in place. And again, the purpose is that if Sally was to reach the medication dispensing window, she's not going to get her medication until she goes to see Kevin or whoever that hold was put in place by. And last, I have the actual check-in, which is going to indicate when the screen comes up that Sally followed our process, went to the front desk, didn't bypass the front desk, went directly to the line. Okay, so Sally's been checked in. Now the nurses are going to, I'm going to say, sit on the medication dispensing screen, fill methadone orders. This defaulted by my user ID to know that I'm normally here. I would select a window. I've put the liquid medication on liquid methadone window, so that's the window I'm going to select. Now, when I select Lisa, when she presents herself, I'm sorry, Sally, when Sally presents herself at the screen, you can see up in the top right, Sally's been checked in. She followed the process. If I click on that here, it will tell me every day Sally's been checked in. That same button is located at the chart level. We don't give clinicians, for example, or typically you don't give clinicians access to this dispensing screen, but you would want them to see the information which is on the check-in screen. We place that hold from the check-in screen. It is an access right level choice for you to determine, will I allow the nurse the ability to remove this hold, or can only the clinician remove the hold, or whoever's group we associated with a group. So one clinician could remove another clinician's hold. That is a business decision when we're working with you, who you want to give those rights to. Typically, you give the rights to the nurse to do that. Okay, so if I try to dispense now for Sally, I would get a, no, you can't. It's an actual hold or a block. Okay, let me go over really quick the dispense screen. We'll do a couple dispenses. We'll move on to the inventory screen. Okay. And I think I have some annotation tools here. Let me get a little scribble up here so we can move pretty quick. Okay, at the top here is the location. This defaults by the user ID. You can have multiple windows, so you have to choose what window you're currently operating from. And when you see the inventory screen, at the inventory screen, you assign the medication to the window. This is going to automatically default. This just tells you that it's a liquid order by the indication of milliliters. Okay. These two are current estimates based on the box down here below. So this is the current estimate to dispense to the 4 patients that are currently visible in the list. The bottom is the amount, this one here, the second one, is the amount of medication currently assigned to window liquid methadone. So I have one bottle of 1,000 milliliters untouched and a partial bottle that's at 828.8 milliliters. That's what I have left. Each time that I click dispense over here, This will reduce by the amount. In this instance, it's going to reduce by 9.2 milliliters, right? This is in milligrams. So it's going to reduce by 9.2 milliliters. At the end of every day, one would attest to the patients who have not shown today. And let me click on that button real quick. Go back to here. So here I have 4 patients. The 4 patients would come up. You would indicate if you know what they, why they weren't here, and you can quickly indicate these. If I was to hit save close, what would happen is this information would be written to each of their patient records or their charts to indicate why they missed today. Okay, we have a clinic option setting that allows you to indicate for X amount of consecutive days a patient misses to automatically put a hold in place. Typically, agencies pick either 2 to 3 days, and if a patient misses 2 or 3 consecutive days, an auto hold is put in place. Okay, we have a hold report that we recommend that you run first thing in the morning, because at night is when the job runs that goes through today and says how many folks didn't show, and of those folks who hit the threshold that you set, let's call it 2 days, automatically puts a hold in place. You'd probably want to run that report first thing in the morning to see who tripped that auto hold and try to catch them or address it ahead of time. Okay, I'm going to click cancel here. Okay, we do give you the ability for those agencies that have multiple locations. We have several agencies in New York, for example, one that has 6 different locations throughout Harlem, Manhattan, Brooklyn, and so on. And patients may show up or be sent to another agency, or they have another purpose somewhere else in the city and they show up. This gives them the ability to pull them in by that other location and indicate that they've received their medication at a different location today, accounting for any billing rules or specifics that have to be taken in place. Okay, after I dispense for Sally here, you'll see this color go from orange to green. Green means has been dispensed. I can refresh the screen up here in the top, which will remove all of the individuals just from a view perspective that have been completed today. And if I wanted to see those again, I would come back and click on the completed. Okay. If I only want to see those that have been checked in so far, so if I have a list of 300 patients here, but I only want to see the ones that have gone through the check-in desk, I would click on this. So right now, let's clear my screen, mouse. Right now, I only have, unless somebody else has checked somebody in, I only have 1. Sally's the only one that's been checked in so far. Okay, and if I turn that off, I go back to everybody. I click on show completed. I don't have any completed dispenses yet. Now, back to these folks here. These are all orange because for each of these patients, they've missed at least 1 day. Okay. When I selected the patient, it tells me how many days. Now, this is a demo system. So the last time we used it was 15 days ago. And that's why up here it says the patient has missed 15 dispenses. So again, if they miss at least 1 day, they come up orange. When you select the patient on the top, it will tell you specifically how many days they've missed. Okay. Across the top, I'm going to touch on the most important ones. I think in Seattle, you're not required to return bottles, right? Take-home bottles? Okay, so we'll skip the first 2. Notes, I can save information here. It'll come up orange, just like the med hold. That might be information from today to whoever the nurse is tomorrow. Sally might not look well today, or I had some discussions, she's feeling ill, and you might want to relay that information. So the next time Sally comes up in the window, the nurse would see that information, read it, ask how they're doing. Screenings will come up in a color if there was one scheduled for today. It could be slightly pink red if they failed. It could be green if they passed, or just highlighted dark if there is one to be taken today. Adjusted dose is the same as if we come down here and adjust the dose. I'm going to pass on that. We can do it visually down here. The admin screen is used for all the anomalies. Now in your, I'm going to call it RFQ, You had listed, how do we count for spills, removes, adjustments, those types of things. I want you to think of our admin screen this way. From the screen that we have here today, I'm to follow the order and schedule as it's been written. Sally's supposed to get 92 milligrams. You should give her 92 milligrams. In the event that Sally gets ill, after I've already dispensed to her, this will go to 0, and you can't redispense from Sally from the screen because you've already given her medication for today. With me so far? In that case, I have one of two choices, a one-time order or an admin dispense, and I'm going to show you both. From the admin screen, that's where I handle the mistakes, or I have to provide an additional dispense. So for example, if Sally's order is written at 92 milligrams, I can't give Sally more than 92 milligrams from this screen. If the decision was made, Sally comes up to the window, says, I don't feel well, I'd like 102 milligrams today. But she told you after you already clicked the button, dispensed, and you gave her the medication and she drank it. What are your options now? Well, you have to give her another 10 milligrams. You've got the one-time order option here, or just the admin screen. Either way, you're calling or having a conversation with a doctor, or you're getting a verbal in order for that to happen, and then you're going to continue. So it's a business process decision. We're going to dispense and follow through that. Okay. The next is a discontinue. This tells you when this current order is going to discontinue. It's going to discontinue on 2/15/22. And if I wanted to discontinue this right now, we make it easy. Click on the button. It will go open the chart. It will open the order form and bring you right in so you can come here and discontinue this immediately. Okay. Next, we have our history. So the history of dispenses, we have to go back. It defaults only to a week for processing. Back on the 17th was the last time that we dispensed for her. So when you click on the history button, it's going to go back and you can look at all of the dispense history that has happened for Sally. That same button is also visible on the chart so that a clinician can go see what their compliance or when they've received their medication is. We talked about med hold. I'm going to clear this so that I can dispense. In this instance, I'm a nurse. I'm currently set up, but I've been given permission to remove the hold. So I would, there could be multiple. I'm going to select, remove the hold, and save. Now the orange is going to go away. Now I'm allowed to dispense to Sally. This just tells me they're checked in. At the end of, I know Sally followed the process. She went to the front desk. At the end of the day, that will clear. And tomorrow, if she's checked in, it will become green again. We have the ability to take a payment. If I click on the button, it will come up. It will tell me if I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to follow through the process. So we're going to dispense for Sally. I'm going to do one thing. I don't remember if I checked my printer. When I try to come to here and here, these are take-home bottles. See, they're indicated here for a take-home. I need a printer in order to print the label. And if I don't have one set up, I should have Snagit. I do. If I don't have one set up, it will stop me. Okay. I can also select all three at once. So I'm just going to select all three at once. I'm going to select the 3 rows at once. I'm going to click dispense. It's going to ask me for my signature. I'm going to provide a signature. There's a signature at the counter and say, okay. I'm sorry, I'm going to abort. I'm currently set up to be connected to a pump, and I'm not set up to a pump at my desk. So I'm going to come down here and turn the override on. And I'm going to tell it, I want to move forward anyway. I don't have a pump. Now I'm going to select dispense. And what it's doing is it's printing the label. Now, my little application here, although it shows me both labels, it doesn't show me the full length of the label. It cuts it off for some reason, but you would get a full size label. So now I've dispensed those 3. Now it shows 0. If I look at medication history, you can see that I provided Sally here with 2 take-home bottles and 1 clinic all today. Okay, any questions so far?
Hi,
Yeah, I have
this
a
is,
question.
oh,
Sorry.
go ahead.
The labels, are they programmed, or can we program those ourselves? I did not see an expiration date on that label that popped up, and I do know that it's required to have an expiration date.
That is a good point. So let me look at something real quick, and I can answer that.
That was my question, Linda. So I'll leave it to you.
Thank you.
Let's see. Expiration date expires, yes. Okay.
So you can add it.
Yes, so we have one of 2 options. I'm using the stock item. What I opened up here is called the methadone dispensing label template. So if you don't set up anything here, you get the standard label. The standard label does not have expiration date on it. If you choose not to use the standard label and you want to use this and create your own label, then these are the data elements that are available to you to print on the label. And expiration date or expires is one of those.
Okay, so when you did all 3 of those pours at the same time, that all did not go into the same place, correct? You had a cup there for the first part of it.
Yeah, let me bring up Snagit because I just did that quick. Where's my application? My application closed. Okay, I got 2 labels because we had 1 clinic visit. So by standard, right? This one here was the second one. So it was dispensed on 12/3, but it was to be taken on 12/4. And again, I apologize. Snagit cuts it off for some reason. The label doesn't. But then it's take on, or sometimes it's referred to as the 4 date. So to drink this one on 12/4, the next label had the same thing dispensed on 12/3, but they're to take it on 12/5. Those also exist in that template. That's
Okay. All right. That makes sense then. Thank you.
Okay. Now, if I can we pre-pour in Seattle, right? We're in Seattle.
We're Anacortes, which is north of Seattle, about 90 miles.
Okay. Can we pre-pour?
We generally don't pre-pour here. We wait until the client's in the window.
Okay. Is it a regulation though? I mean, could you pre-pour if you want to?
No, because we do pre-pour when we have to deliver to the jail or.
Yeah, that's common. But some agencies will pre-pour for larger, like if someone's coming in for a bi-weekly or a monthly, because of the time, they want to get them through the line, they'll pre-pour the large ones, if you will.
We generally don't do that.
Okay. It's an option. I won't discuss it today, but it is an option. The only reason I do that is because in that instance, you do have the option in some states that allow that to happen. They have a specific rule, like they still have to drink at the window, of course, but it must come from the pump. And in other states that allow you to pre-pour, they'll say it's now a bottle, right? The bottle that you're going to drink the day that you receive your medication. I'm sorry, I thought I had my camera on. I'm animating and I'm talking to you as it's going. In some states where they allow that to happen, we would then, when you pre-pour, even though it's going to be a clinic visit, a label would be printed for that bottle because it's poured ahead of time. Okay. Any other questions on this screen?
Go ahead. Hang on just a second. We got another question.
Okay.
Go
You
ahead.
may answer this, but I have a question. So if the prescription expires, will it indicate that they've still missed the dose if like they're an active client?
I'm not sure I understand. So if the prescription, so you're calling a prescription, I'm going to call it an order. I'm going to translate. If the order expires, they're automatically removed from the list.
Okay,
right? So I'm gonna go to Sally's chart here real quick. And on the top here, you can see she's set to discontinue on 2/15. So the order itself can have your choice, has a discontinue date up here on the top of 2/15. Up until, I'm gonna call it end of day midnight on 2/15, if the screen was open, the dispense screen, Sally would be in the screen. On 2/16, she will no longer come up in the dispense window screen.
okay.
Okay,
Linda, do you know what I'm talking about? The dilemma we've had here for missed doses for 4 years?
You're talking about if they miss 3 doses, Eric?
Yeah, and their prescription runs out, then it doesn't
Well,
trigger any of
It
us.
cancels, I believe I heard him say that it will, if it's with our regulations, our rules that we set, that if they miss 3 days at the end of that 3rd day, it will automatically cancel the orders. Is that correct?
It won't cancel
it
the order.
doesn't,
It'll put a hold on it.
yeah, it doesn't automatically cancel. It puts a hold in place, which
Okay.
prevents the dispense from happening until someone clears it.
Eric, I think what Eric is asking is if they come in the next day, if they don't come in the next day, will
Yep.
we know that they missed when they don't have an active order?
You'll know that they missed because at the end of every day,
Yeah,
you have to click on this patient unavailable. So right now, if this was the end of the day and I had 200 patients, 3 people didn't come today, right? I would indicate, mark all of them as unavailable, and the reason why, if you know, you might not know, but some might be in the hospital, one might be in jail, and the other, you just don't know, right? And if I indicate that, I need a reason for each one. I'm just going to put a letter. And if I indicate that they've now been indicated that they've missed, right? So if I go to Albert here, what program is he in? How about methadone? Let me go to Lisa. Now, if I go to Lisa's chart, for example, methadone dispenses, that inserted a 0 row and Y, the indication for jail, I just put a G there and it's indicated. I'm going to leave these patients like this because when I show you in reporting, one of the common reports that you would run at the end of the day, most agencies, they're going to run who received medication today. They're also going to run the report of who missed today. Typically, agencies, one of 2 things. They have a clinician or someone responsible to run that report for their own people, or the nurse will run the report and provide it to those folks saying, here, these are the folks that didn't show today.
Okay, but Kevin, isn't that under the assumption that the individual has an active prescription?
Yes, yes.
So what happens when the prescription expires? So for example, what happens if the prescription expires on 4/15?
Yep.
Is there anything that happens on 4/16?
No, not by default. We have an on-hold report. That hold report looks for expiration dates and or missing discontinued dates. It would be a process that you would run each day. Typically, if you're using discontinued dates, the process is this week I'm running for next week or the following week to determine those orders that are going to discontinue within a date range.
Okay.
So sometimes it's a push. In this instance, it's a pull. Someone has to manage that. Just like I said, someone should be running the hold report in the morning to see who's missed. I'm going to call it 2 consecutive days based on the rule that's set. You'll want to run that in the morning to see last night who missed for their 2nd day or their 3rd day consecutively, because they've all been placed on hold.
Eric, does that answer your question?
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, I think that we're trying to figure out how we can see the people that missed, that like they'll have an order up until the 15th, but on the 16th and 17th they missed. But we have no way right now of seeing that they missed and knowing that to put into their chart. because they haven't come in, their order expired on one day. They don't show the next couple of days, but then they come in on the third day.
Yeah, and what would you put in their chart?
We just let everybody know, like the counselors and everybody know that they missed certain days so they can keep track in their charts.
Okay, so what we have is, this is the report that would be run daily. I'm gonna run it for today, but you note it's a date range.
Okay.
So it defaults to missed, and I'm gonna run it, and this tells me everybody who's missed. Now, if I wanna open this up to, a week or months or whatever that might be, I can go back to 2020 and run this report and see who has missed since 2020. Right? Clearly nobody's indicating in here in the sales demo that people have missed. But in here it would show, and then it would group under the patient. So for example, Albert would have every miss that he's had underneath here, right? We do give you a patient filter in here so that you can run it individually for compliance. If I wanted to just see, methadone, if I did this, it'll build a list for all those with the last name. And now I could run it for whatever date duration I would like for just Lisa.
Okay.
Or Sally, right? Would that fit your needs? Again, this is usually the reports that I instruct the nurses. This is a daily report that's run, because the reversal of this is who was here, who was available.
Yeah, we run both of those reports every day. I think just the question is, will those people be on the report that don't have an active order on that days that they missed? So every day we run it, and when we have an expired order, like they expired the day before and they didn't come in the next day to dose. Right now, we aren't able to see those clients and tell everybody else that they missed because their order is not active.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's I'm splitting that into two different categories, right? So this on hold report is the one that I would run to find those that have had an order discontinued, right? This report assumes there was a valid order and they did or did not receive their medication. I don't have it combined into one.
Okay.
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 And Kevin, just
I have a question. Is there a list that can be run for prescriptions that expire at the end of the day? Like, so there's a list that these all expired?
That would, that, yes, I'm drawing a blank on no, it's not the whole. You're missing a report here, so I apologize. There is a report that's used to determine those that have a discontinued date that has, for a date range for the discontinued date, or no discontinued date was entered. Yes, we have a report for that. I don't have it here to show you.
Hey, Kevin, time is our enemy here. Jonathan has come in. I was wondering if you could take a couple of minutes as we wrap up and talk about reporting for DEA. I know we were talking about being able to get data points for DEA forms 106, 107, and 41.
Yes. Yes. So we've got all of them. We've got them all covered. I know that section on the document I had, the S08 is the dispensing piece. So for the DEA form, the 222 for the ordering form. And by the way, I don't have any of these forms. We support this forms by capturing the data, but we don't actually have these DEA forms internally. So I'm going to go to the medication inventory screen. And for example, I'm just going to show you real quick. If I wanted to see what's currently at the liquid methadone screen, this is what we have left. Remember, we were at behind here, you see we're at 1,801.2. That's one bottle of 1,000 and one bottle of 801.2. The two bottles are assigned to the window. Okay. Now, the 222 form. If I wanted to add medication, I can add medication either one bottle at a time, or I can add it in bulk. So if I wanted to add it in bulk, I would come down here. this clears this information here. What I would do is I would put a better description. You're probably getting it from Mallinckrodt. I'd put Mallinckrodt in here, your lot number, your expiration date, and if you're required to use NDC code, you'd be entering your NDC code. You'd put your beginning prefix, then a starting number and an ending number, click insert, and you would insert 10, 20, 50, 100 bottles, however many there is. However, you know as well as I do, lot numbers are only X amount. So really you're entering them as an amount as large as you can that have the same lot number, the same expiration date, and the same NDC code, but yet with different bottle numbers. Okay.
So,
And Kevin, we track by serial number. Is that the batch number field would hold that, or we can scan them in individually, but we don't track by NDC?
Okay, then if you're tracking them by serial number, one of two choices. You could bulk insert to get them in quick, go back to each one and edit that, right? So you're using the serial number as the bottle number?
Yes.
yeah.
So I have the ability then for you to use a handheld scanner. You wouldn't be using the bulk insert. You'd be doing it this way. See how this becomes enabled now? Actually, I have it plugged in right now. It's going to come up with an MRN number. Hold on, let me get a piece of paper here. I was doing some experiment about scanning when a patient comes to the window. So I got my little handheld scanner here on a piece of paper, and I'm going to scan that. This is an MRN number, a fictitious MRN number, and it inserted the information into the bottle. So I can do that. I would do this, and I would hit insert, and then I would move on to the next bottle and hit insert, one at a time. So the answer is yes.
Sorry, Kevin, when you're done inserting all of those, is there a report that will print out that shows what you've just put in?
Yeah, there's a medication inventory report. So yes, from a reporting perspective, that is just our medication inventory report. Now that's not the one I wanted. Let me go back. No, that is inventory. So it is, but it's all of my inventory. I don't think I can separate. Are you looking for just today?
Yes.
Today?
Yes, because we have to match those to the invoices, and we have to account for them coming in that day, stamp them for the date, and sign them, and they go into an inventory book for adding to inventory.
So I wouldn't be against, and I can't promise you a time frame, right?
Okay.
I told you I'm responsible for the methadone product suite. I wouldn't be against adding an enhancement. That would be what we consider the creation date for the medication. I like the idea. I'm surprised no one's asked me before. I wouldn't be against putting in a creation date filter in here, like the as of date. This means what is the inventory as of this date, or I could go back yesterday or however long, right? What was the inventory as of that snapshot in time? I wouldn't be opposed to asking for a creation date. If you were live tomorrow, I don't have it. All the inventory is added here, right? But I like the idea.
Okay.
So that would be something I suspect, since the report exists, I'd be able to make happen.
So Kevin, first of all, thank you very much for your time and your expertise. I appreciate it. Chuck Andrews, what I usually find out is 2 hours sounds like a lot of time, and it's never enough, especially if you like what you're seeing. But hold the thoughts. And if you like this, we can come back and do a deeper dive next time. We're fortunate enough to have Jonathan King with us. We're fairly new to primary care. We've done some development over the last year. We're just implementing this now. But I know that's one of the questions on the RFP, and I would like to, if it's okay, unless there are any burning desires or last questions, I'll ask that now. And if not, I'd like to thank you, Kevin, and then introduce Jonathan. So last chance on methadone, and realize if you like, we can come back and do a follow-on.
Chuck, give me 30 seconds to answer the question. I won't go into it, but S11 for the DEA forms, the 106, 107, and 41.
Okay.
Okay. So
Good question, Kevin.
what's that?
Reports, can those be automatically set so the system is triggered to run those?
We can schedule. Yep.
And can those be exported?
To like,
Well, they're scheduled to run. Don't quote me on this. I think you've got an option between a Word, Excel, or PDF. I'm not 100% sure on what the format is. The reports are run and then dropped into an area where they can be picked up. I'm pretty sure they're dropped.
File transfer portal. Kevin.
Yeah, file transfer port. Administration.
No, it's day to day, very
It
bottom.
is day to day. It's usually way down at the bottom. Anyway, day to day file transfer portal. Do you see it here?
You got to use the arrow at the very bottom because everything's turned on there.
Goodness, I'm not used to that.
demo system.
Okay, here, file transfer portal, and they're dropped into the report section here. Okay. Okay, so 106 and 107 are for lost and stolen. One is, it looks like an exceptional amount of stolen, the 107 form. So 106 and 107, at the inventory level, anytime that you would touch it, if you were to touch it or adjust the levels, you have to say why. So anything from end of day, we know that there's some manufacturer overages commonly in liquid bottles, and you were to right click and adjust that, you have to say why. If you were to indicate that you spilled it or it was stolen or whatever that might be, we track that down to the level. There's a difference between I'm dispensing to a patient and I spilled it on the counter versus I'm just doing work, or at the end of the day, I'm pouring from one bottle to another and I spilled it. One would be an inventory adjustment and would be tracked and found in the inventory adjustment report. Another one would be this admin patient exception report, because you would indicate those at one of two different levels. So yes, we have that accounted for. Any questions? All right, Mr. King, you are up.
Thank you, Kevin.
I'm going to stop my share, or no, can I stop my share?
Yeah, go ahead and stop your share. And Jonathan King is our Director of Revenue Cycle Management, but he's been actively involved as we built the primary care, particularly about being able to drive it all the way down to a super bill. And Chuck Andrews had asked us our capability, and I'm going to ask you, Jonathan, if you can give us an overview of how that works.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Hope you've been enjoying what you've been seeing so far. So I want to spend a little bit of time to show you what we've developed in the software to really address, I'm going to say, primary care situations. And what I mean by situations is our customer base, right? They may have a primary care program, but what services they're actually offering in that primary care vary greatly, right? So one clinic may be doing basic physical med checks. Others might be more treating on a holistic basis with the patient. So we came up with a way to best address that, where it's very configurable for what it is that your primary care clinic is trying to achieve from a clinical documentation, what services you're rendering, and then ultimately, how do you need to actually bill that medical service? So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm not actually going to be in the demo database. I'm going to be in a different database because I want to show you a couple different screens and forms to kind of give you an idea of what you would be able to achieve from a primary care perspective. Does that make sense to everyone, the way I kind of laid that out? And
I like it.
I think I just shared my incorrect screen. All right. Do you guys see eCR and it says sprint review?
It's up.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm gonna work on an assumption here. Chuck, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hoping you guys saw that you have the ability to, right, you register a patient, you put them in a program, and then you're able to schedule them, and you saw, you know, the charts for a patient. Am I correct in that?
Well, I didn't get to scheduling, but you saw the chart.
Okay. So when I read through the scenarios, right, you want to see, how do I handle a patient, right, from making an appointment, right, putting them on the schedule, and then documenting that primary care, that medical visit. So the first thing I want to show you is this test, and we called it test super bill progress note. So in ECR, we have a piece of functionality called FormLab. And FormLab is unique in the sense that you can create any clinical document that you want. And when I say any, we can do an overview of FormLab in general at some other time, but for today's purposes, we're going to look at two different forms. The reason for two is because I broke them out so we kind of look at clinical documentation from a medical standpoint versus the billing component of it. But I come to you today not knowing specifically what medical services you're going to be providing to a patient. But what we do have here is we've put together kind of a very overarching super bill medical progress note. And I want to start by saying that you can create this form to have any number of controls, fields, questions that you want based on what it is that you're going to want to be able to document and record based on that medical visit. So in this case, right, we start off with very basic, right, the date I saw him, the time, chief complaints, and from that medical perspective, what other data elements are you capturing in regards to that service or services that you may have ended up doing to that patient during that visit? In FormLab, when I use the word controls, I mean the different kind of data functions you can put in that super bill. So you can enter free text fields. These can be lookup tables. You can put in grids or check boxes, right? So patient history of present illness, vitals, right? So document any number of vitals that you're doing. Allergies and medications, right? From a control perspective, ECR, right, uses Dr. First for e-prescribing. And I use the word control because the medications list and the allergies list communicates throughout that patient, right? So it lives at patient details. So whether I prescribed a medication to that patient at any point in time or entered allergy information, this grid would be able to pull that in real time and give you a real-time view of what allergies or what medications that patient may be in. And we can click through each tab and kind of see, but I want you guys to get the idea that you can put any number of data fields in here that you would want to capture based on your primary care service offering. Let me pause for a minute and ask any questions so far, any clarification I can give you? No? Okay. So let's switch gears then and talk about now the billing aspect of that primary care visit, right? So you might have seen earlier on that ECR can create a charge in any number of ways, right? if you have a, I'm going to say traditional outpatient mental health clinic, you may be just writing progress notes. I saw the patient for an hour of individual therapy, and that billing, I'm going to say, is air quotes straightforward in the sense that I did some service, and that note is going to create a charge for a CPT code for some amount of time. Or as you were seeing with Kevin's methadone, the methadone module will be able to say, okay, there were X amount of doses in that week. There may have been other services as well outside of the dosing, and ECR will have the ability to create that weekly bundled charge based on the different payer rules and do it that way. From a primary care perspective, you may see that patient, and during that care visit, it's not always as simple as I just rendered a service. You might actually have rendered multiple services during that one visit. So I just want to open up this other form version here. Please don't look at this as a full primary care review. I want to show this because I want to demonstrate some billing controls that are available in FormLab that you can put into any primary care document or documents that you create. So in primary care, you may end up, like I said, rendering a couple different procedures or services to that individual. And based on the service you rendered, it might be tied to one or multiple different diagnoses, right, to do correct billing in that situation. So like we saw in that other form, right, you would have that date of service, right, that is required, and the start and end time. But in that full-blown kind of clinical documentation form that you would create based on what you do, you could add in I'm going to say different versions of the billing controls. In a normal progress note, and I don't know if you saw it, but basically you choose a visit type, which is tied to a procedure, and it's going to look at that chart for that primary diagnosis, and that's kind of your basic mental health outpatient charge. However, in the primary care world, you can create any number of these procedure grids. And when I'm seeing that patient, whether you want the provider doing it, or you can actually have this note and have it be routed to a biller. Not sure what your billing process is at this point regarding your primary care billing. But that document could be reviewed, and maybe I did, two different, I rendered two different services in that visit. I can also select multiple diagnoses to address those services that I may have done based on these services. And then from a billing standpoint, I can actually control, right? Either, yes, I want the 99382 to go with both, or just the one. And same thing, I only want that procedure to have that as the primary diagnosis, pointer wise, go out with that. Let me pause because I kind of clicked through that. Is that clear? Does that make sense on what we've been able to do there so far? I'm going to go with yes. All right. So I do want to go to Formlab now and just quickly kind of show you the capabilities, right? Because if you were to go with ECR, right, we do have the form library, and we have, I think we're up to 1,300 forms that you get in that library. But the beauty of Formlab is we understand that, again, there's going to be very unique situations that we might not have a pre-templated form for you. So I did just want to open up a form, billable and not published. And the reason for that is I just want to kind of show you the number of controls that are available to you for this. So if I were to open this form, right? So just a quick preview of Formlab. You would obviously be taught on how to do this. It is, you might not know what you're looking at right away, but when I go here, right, add control or add billing controls, right? So you have multiple different options. And again, based on what services you provide, what kind of flexibility you need when actually sitting down with that patient and doing it. But we have the enhanced services control, super bill procedures, super bill diagnosis, immunizations, right? I don't know if your primary care offering also deals with immunizations, but there are hard-coded tables in there to collect, the kind of standard immunization things. And again, you can add to that. So really the moral of my story here is once we have a better understanding of what exactly it is that your primary care offering is, then any number of forms, billable or not, can be created to fit in with the overall workflow of in ECR. You want your providers to be able to do their documentation, quickly go through a form, document, and then ultimately on the charge creation ends, ECR is pulling everything together, creating that charge correctly up front. Sound good?
Yeah, the only question I have, Jonathan, is this Devon Smith, sorry.
Yeah, how are you?
Revenue cycle capture charge master process, is that a separate, can we look at that separately, different time?
So when you say charge master capture, are you talking about your actual, all your
Schedules,
procedures?
contracts, yes.
Yeah.
So fee schedule, contract upload, things like that.
Yeah. So from a setup standpoint, right? And let's just kind of, I'll try to get as in-depth as possible. But right, so you would have all of your procedures, right? So I'm just going to choose a procedure. In ECR, right, you'd enter your customary contractual. We can do contractual write-offs when remits are auto-posted. Based on what the payer is sending back, we will automatically make any adjustments to that. There's the variation tabs. So calling out your different contracts, right? Think of the info tab as the rule versus the exception. So in general, you might be charging $54 for this procedure. However, Medicaid, we know, we want to send it out at a different rate or a different write-off, or for a certain credentialed person, it needs to go out at a different rate. So you have a pretty extreme flexibility. Again, when ECR creates that charge, it's going to look at this table and go, oh, I'm billing out a 90834. It's going to this payer and it was rendered by this person, so I need to do blank. Devin, did I answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, excellent.
And Devin, we can go and do additional, when we talk about the scrubbing and submissions, and eligibility checking and how that drops in. Certainly we can do that. My concern is that we're at 2 hours right now, and you guys have been kind enough to join us during your lunchtime. I want to make sure that You guys don't hate me because I took your lunch away. So, you know, do you want to continue going on? We can talk more about billing. We can talk about reporting. Or if you like, maybe we could kind of let you guys talk amongst yourselves, and if you like it, maybe Chuck could come back to me. We could set up a follow-on demo.
Yeah, hi, this is Don Ballmer. I'm one of the providers. You know, again, I'm leaving this up to the whole staff, but I mean, I know that we actually have several detailed primary care questions that we need to ask.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's appropriate to do that now, or Jason, that would be worth setting up a separate session with them at some point just to address primary care functionalities. But it sounds like Devon and his team may also have several questions about billing as well. So yeah, I don't want to monopolize, but you know, there are some important questions that we need to ask.
Just to step in there, this is Jason. I would say it's really up to you guys on who has a schedule that allows for the questions. So if 10, 11 folks can stay on and answer some of those, I think getting those answers, or at least those questions, out now would be appropriate. I think we did a good job of going through the methadone and dispensing pieces. One of the big questions that I still have pending is like, how do you collaborate across each program? And I think that's probably something Don and others would want to see too.
Sure. So let me suggest this as a game plan. Because Jonathan King is our subject matter expert and the best person I have available for primary care, and you have Don, was it, with provider questions? Let's address that now. We'll talk a little bit about collaboration, but then we can come back and dive deeper on that and then go under the hood for billing to a more granular degree, specifically for the billing folks in our next demo. Would that be fair enough?
I think that's fair. And I'd also just offer up, if you know, you're on this call and you're out of time or you have other things you need to drop off, it is being recorded and we can always follow up like I mentioned in my previous email. So feel free to step out if you need to.
So let's go ahead and jump in on the primary care questions.
Okay, thank you, John. Jonathan. So first of all, does the EHR have a lot of things called a face sheet? So where we can very quickly go to a patient, look at all their diagnoses, their past medical history, current problem list, you know, pending orders. Just kind of like a general, here's a complete snapshot of that patient.
Sure. So I'm going to give you kind of a twofold answer. In ECR, in the form library, right, we have, and I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but there's X amount of different styles of face sheets, right? So you're in the chart and you just want to open up that one thing and bam, it's going to present, you know, X amount of data elements, right? Now, the forms in our form library, those face sheets, they're probably not necessarily geared towards primary care right now. However, because of FormLab though, and being able to pull in any of those controls, you would be able to create that face sheet. And, you know, you had said about, you know, medications or history of vitals, whatever, you could put those controls in it. So then I'm pulling up that face sheet and there is, you know, whatever that information is you want. Does that help?
So yeah, so that's again, that's highly customizable in terms of it. We could design a face sheet that had demographics, had their diagnoses, had like I said, current medications, pending visits. We can, if there's not one already in FormLab, we can design one that to suit our purposes.
Correct. And real quick, just to kind of show you something, because you said another thing, right? Like demographics or chart specific information. Depending on the control that you might add, right? So if I were to say, you know what, I want to pull in And I hope I'm going to pull in a good thing here. What am I looking for? All right, text, right? So say I was going to say, you know what, I want this face sheet to pull in some information, and this pre-fill editor button is on several of the controls, right? So you can choose, where do I want this to pull in? Do I want it to pull in from some other form or pre-fills from some other place, right? Maybe I want it to pre-fill from some patient demographic data, right? So yes, you've got that ability to say, yeah, whether I'm pulling in a control that the control by itself is always kind of real-time medications, allergies, diagnosis, or I want it to show, pre-fill from some other data element, right? Patient demographics. I've put in their date of birth, eye color, whatever. So my answer is yes. Does that help?
Okay. Yes. So we have, we have a care team model here. So, each of the providers has a patient panel, and then those providers, there is also a registered nurse and a medical assistant. Can we customize or set up workflows such that we can look at and track patient information by provider panel?
Maybe give me a little more context by panels. So in your workflow, is it they come in and they're seen by the nurse first, and then they're like, can you just kind of?
Sure. So for example, let's say we've got 200 patients and 4 providers. Each one of those providers and their teams has a panel of 50 patients. So can different teams kind of customize their workflows depending on how that team sees and tracks their patients? So like my team may want to say, we always set up our visits in this particular way. And at the end of the visit, we want the registered nurse on the team and the medical assistant on the team to get action items for next steps for this patient. Like, please make sure that the patient has these immunizations by this date, and make sure that they get set up with a registered nurse appointment within 2 weeks, or that sort of thing. Like, so am I making sense to you, or kind of giving you an idea here?
Yes, and I'm gonna do my best to kind of paint you a picture that I believe is what you're asking. Albeit though, I will say part of our implementation process is, and I'm kind of saying this as the writer, just because in case I totally miss the mark, when we do your implementation, right, the first thing the project management team is, they do a full business process review, right? Because the only way we're going to be successful in making sure the software is doing the workflows that you need to do, we need to know soup to nuts, right, what your teams are doing. But with that said, I'm gonna take a shot at it here in the 30 seconds scenario. So I'm gonna go into a couple different areas to kind of build on what I think you're looking to achieve. Sprint review, yeah, there's no PH on here. So you've got your patients, right? And I want to open up a chart because I'm going to go to a couple different areas and show you how these would all come to play together. So on any patient, right? Obviously, you can set what we call default users, right? So a patient comes in and they're going to be seen by, this primary therapist or I just got to choose someone.
I'm in there, Jonathan. You can pick Marchison. Oh, you got one. Okay.
But so you can call out, right? Like, okay, what roles are these individuals and who would be default users on that patient's chart, right? So you're kind of addressing all right, here's my teams for, certain patients. The other area I wanted to show you to kind of start creating this group workflow is in Alert Manager, right? So Chuck had talked about alerts, and alerts can be sent to, you must complete this, or you must do this, or patient got checked in, or a diagnosis changed. In Alert Manager setup, and I meant to do, Kevin, remind me where Alert Manager setup is.
Administration alert. Oh, setup Alert Manager.
All right. So in Alert Manager, this is where you actually start creating any number of alert rules you want, but you can also create alert groups, right? So if you have these defined care teams or care panels, you can create those panels. So, kind of building blocks, right? Okay, I'm assigning patients to teams. I can create those same teams from an alert group perspective. And that way, then any alerts you set up, you can say, that alert is for group A, group B, whatever. And that would help play into that workflow that I believe you're describing in, okay, this patient's in this team. So these specific rules, right? Team A may want to know one thing versus the other group wants to have a different set of alerts. Am I hitting the mark somewhat on your question?
So that answers part of it. So the other part, so for example, is there a way to set up kind of a, I don't know if it would be called a managing screen or list to where it's a care manager can very simply just say, I just want to look at these 50 patients because these 50 patients are the ones on my care team. So I want to just, like, I don't need to see all the patients in the clinic. I just want to be able to quickly pull up this list of 50 patients that are seen by this one care team.
My day sheet, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Would bring up the primary.
So yeah, you can kind of do that a couple different ways. And I like Kevin's idea more so probably, but right, my client list, I'm signed in as admin here, right? So I'm going to see.
Jonathan, I'm sorry. I think I have 4 patients assigned to me. Bring me up in my client list. You should be an admin.
In Sprint Review?
Oh, you're in Sprint Review. You're not in the sales demo anymore?
No, I wouldn't, because those super bill forms aren't in there.
I'm in, let me see if I'm still in.
So
I'm still in.
You want to go ahead and share?
Yeah, let me see if it.
Oh, I gotta stop sharing.
Yeah. I didn't deliver any services, I didn't deliver any services. Would it be, you wanted to look at all of your patients? Okay, let me give it a crack. Let me.
Show your screen, Kevin.
Yeah. So, let me clear this. So my client list over here on the right-hand side can come up and be used in multiple different ways. So right now I'm deselected down here at the bottom of my client list. And this can be a default that we show you how to do this setup when you log in. This is what you get. So by default, if I say my client list, for any one of these patients in these different programs, program could be considered a line of service. Let's just look at the MAT programs as I had it before. And what did we call it? MAT 2? MAT 2. So 2, 4, 5. These 5, if I look at Mighty Mouse, for example, and come up here at the top, the primary on the chart is me. I'm the primary. Every patient is associated with a chart if you're going to deliver services, and every chart must have a primary person responsible. Jonathan, are you actually in here? Probably not. Like Jonathan said, I could go and say, I'll add Charlie clinician, show on chart, and make their role. Charlie is the group responsible for groups, right? Show and update. And now Charlie should appear on the chart. Charlie appears on the chart. So I can get up to 5 or 6 up on the top here. So you could say that for Mighty Mouse, this is their team. Is it team that we called them?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the team. Now, for all services that I provide, if I was to come over here under my client list, there's 2 options day to day, I want my day sheet. For all services that I provide, I would be listed over here for the services that I've provided. I had to have provided something at some point. These are all services that were provided. Based on my access rate level, I will see only my clients, just like over here, that I'm the primary for services that have been rendered here. Based on your access level, you might be a supervisor or a level above, and you would see everybody's, and then you would come over here and filter this down by that individual person. Again, I am in here, refresh, and I haven't delivered any services in the demo, in the sales system here.
Look under Charlie clinician.
And is that, can you go back to the screen you were just on?
Yep.
And so is this customizable? So for example, it lists all the services and things that they have that have already been rendered and the dates of service and associated diagnosis codes. Can we build into things like that, like active orders, completed orders, things like that into this form right here?
No, this isn't customizable. When you say, so these are services that were rendered. Now, but you just said orders, meaning like a medication order, are you talking about?
So, so for example, if I'm just trying to see, so if this patient right here, if this patient still had like, oh, they have an they still have 2 immunizations that are due, and they have a pending oncology referral, or that sort of thing. Like, can these headings? Can we add additional headings for things that we might want to be tracking about these patients?
Not here, but as part of the onboarding process, Chuck had stated what happens from a project management perspective, especially if it's methadone, I'd be involved, but not just on the methadone piece as a whole, from a leadership perspective. We'd look to understand your business to help see how are we going to make that work. So a couple ideas off the top of my head. We've got a couple reports out there that would identify forms that were completed on the chart. So in your question there for immunizations or whatever that might be, the first thing I would say is how are we capturing or identifying that data? And if you're choosing to use Form Lab, which is what I would recommend, and create a specific form to capture that data, we've got 2 means of pulling that information. One would be internal, there's a report that's out there, audit. What is the form report, Jonathan?
Wow. I was just
you pick the 6. You pick up the 6 form audit. No.
Type in deficiency.
Yeah, deficiency, form deficiency. Form deficiency. So if I was to pick this report here, and I'm going to pick something that I know. For example, let's go back to 11. And on the MAT program, there's an order and schedule form, right? Now, this doesn't make sense because you'd always have an order and schedule on that form, but MAT 2, I think. Let's see. So, schedule, let me run this. So what this does is it gives you the option to put up to 8 forms on here. And it goes out and says, has this form been completed and has it been completed on one day? So to your question, whatever that is that you'd want to make sure has or has not been provided, my first question is, how are you going to capture that and identify that at the chart level? And I would try for us to test through, maybe it should be a form that's completed, and by completed meaning signed. And then you could use this form deficiency report to identify when that has happened or not. And then you can trigger also, did it happen before the admit date? And this can come up in red. So there's a couple of ways you can run this. So typically there are ways that we can accommodate what you're using for. That really gets into the detail section, and we'd be more than willing to take the time to make sure of those higher priority items that you have, we can account for them in some way.
Okay, that answers that question for the time being. Then. Thank you.
And Jonathan would say the same thing. We've probably got 2 or 3 different ways. What we do is make sure we understand what you're asking for, and then we'll bring you, we're not going to come and say, no, well, no, we can't do that. We can't do it the way you do it today, but here are our choices. Here's choice A, choice B, choice C, and you have a beta environment that's established. And we always ask you, hear us from a delivery perspective, test, and retest, right? Make sure that we've accounted for it. And let's set it up and let's see how it works. And if that doesn't work, we'll go to plan B or plan C and see what works best for you.
Okay. Thank you. So my next question has to do with interfaces for internal services versus external services. So for example, we do some internal lab services. So, point of care, urine drug testing, rapid influenza or COVID tests, instant HIV, that sort of thing.
Yep.
So is in terms of the ability for providers or select others to order things, can we say, is it set up so that we can default to internally ordered services for some items, and then interface with external entities for other services? So for the labs that we send out to another company, will we be able to send those orders directly to that lab and then receive results directly from that lab that would be imported into the patient's charts?
Yeah, so it's 2-part. Let me explain the second part first. We interface with a company called Light Lab. Is it, Jonathan? Light
Labs.
Say again?
LifePoint.
LifePoint. I get it mixed up with a couple. LifePoint is a clearinghouse for lab companies. So as long as the labs that you're using interfaces with the clearinghouse, we have already established relationship with the clearinghouse. Then the next level is we do have labs that have been around for a while, like LabCorp, Quest, ACM, that we already have established interfaces with. So it's either one of the lab companies that we have an established interface with, or LifePoint moving forward. That would be a request that comes from within eCR, automated the send to the lab company. You would print either the requisition or the label or whatever it is, put it on the bottle, send the specimen out, and then that's automatically sent back to us electronically. There's alerts that can be set up to indicate if you have abnormal results, or just an alert to say results have come back and so on, but it automatically comes back and attaches to the patient's chart.
Kevin, can you go ahead and go to day and open up lab orders? Soma compendium.
You can do it right from the chart there too. There should be a button in the chart.
Why is it not turned on? Or?
Oh, it is in sprint review.
Okay. So you submit the order. Where is it? Lab. I can't believe you've got all these things turned on. Lab orders. Here's where I would place the order. I would bring up the patient. Let me clear that again. Mouse M. Okay, you'd bring up Mighty. You'd come in over here on the right-hand side. You can have multiple labs in the demo here. There's multiple labs set up. So we'll just select LifePoint. This information is filled out. Over here would be the compendium or your choices for the lab panels that you would predetermine. You'd select the panel over here and you would send it.
Kevin, pick Johnny Appleseed.
Ah, Johnny's got a bunch sent. These are sent orders, right? And this shows the lab. So if I came in up here and I wanted this 1957 amphetamines profile and I wanted to create another one, I would come up here and I would select this. I'd create another one. This just shows the ones that have been sent so far. These would come back and be automatically associated with the patient in the chart. Now, for the first part of your question, there are many agencies that will take breathalyzers or other lab results internally. If you're alive today, I don't have that. I do have an outstanding request. I'm trying to get it completed or added to our 2022 priorities, where we would allow the user to select, I'm going to call it a lab or an order, if you will, internally. And then internally, you're going to get the results, and then you would go add those results. I don't have a time frame around that. I have a lot of methadone agencies that have asked for it. It's under my preview, if you will, from a MAT clinic that I would like to have that. I have a verbal, we're going to get there someday, but I don't have a time frame around it.
Okay. Is that also the case for things that would be, again, more primary care versus MAT oriented? So like any of the rapid illness screening tests that we might run, like rapid strep, rapid influenza, that sort of thing. Or if that's not possible in lab, is there a workaround built in for those kinds of internal orders?
Yeah, there's absolutely a workaround. A workaround would be you can create whatever form that you'd like. The question is it billable or not? Are you going to bill somebody? We'd help you build the form, whether it's a billable type form that somebody's going to pay for it or not. And we can absolutely track it at the patient level. If you were to say to me, Kevin, I would like those results to be, you call it combined or concatenated in with the existing lab results that comes back, that's the ideal situation that we're looking to get to. I don't have that ideal situation today.
Okay. For lab results that come in that are numerical values, do you have the same? Do we have the same kind of tracking capabilities like that you do for some of the forms, so that I can look at, say, for example, a patient's hemoglobin values over the series of 3 years worth of tests for them?
Kevin, look up Anna Baker and look her up in the MAT program. MAT 2, I believe.
You've got results back?
Yep. I think.
What about Johnny? You got orders that went out.
Hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you open up? Well, okay. I would suggest opening up Anna Baker's chart in MAT 2.
Okay, so I'm sorry I don't have results to show you. So as a lab order goes out the door, it automatically goes to the lab company. The results come back. We send out the medical record identifier. It comes back automatically. It's attached to the chart. That's historical, and that's going to be here for whatever date range at the patient level. In addition to that, I have multiple lab details reports where you could go out and run the report for a particular patient for specific results, and run that for whatever duration of time that you would like. Now, that's going to return the results of whatever it is that you ordered. Right. So if you ordered a hemoglobin, that's the results that would have been returned.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see here. Geez, does your EHR interface with any particular EKG machines or any machines in general, or is that something that generally has to be printed out and entered in manually? Or can it be, or could those results be sent out again to an external agency like a cardiologist's office or something like that?
Currently we don't. However, those are all great ideas. You know, we would consider all of those. But if I'll use the same expression, if I'm getting you live tomorrow, I don't have any interface to an EKG machine or anything of the like. We do have the ability for Power BI. You know, we export our data into a Power BI file, if anyone's familiar with that, you could use to combine that data, external data together to get one singular view. I don't have a way in ECR though today.
I
to get
think
that in, unless you're attaching it to the chart or filling out a form that you created.
correct. You would have to import that as an external document. We do have the ability to support that, but EKG, telemetry, DICOM, we don't support that. Not today. We're getting there, but remember, we started this off as a behavioral health solution and are adapting into the integrated care marketplace. We do a lot that other people don't do on the primary care side. On the other hand, we sure don't do what Epic does. And on the other hand, Epic can't do Matt. So
no. So the thing is we understand that no EHR is going to be perfect for any given person's needs. We're just, looking at things that we use on a regular basis in kind of an order of prioritization.
Yeah.
So just because we don't have a certain feature doesn't mean that disqualifies your EHR as something that we would very much like. We're just trying to, again, to weigh pros and cons. So it's helpful for us to know what sorts of things we can do directly versus we're going to have to do more indirectly.
Yeah. So, we're understand that.
You're frozen.
Can you guys still hear me? Am I still connected?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay. We're 15 years of great ideas from our agencies. So when there's boots on the ground and the project managers in front of you and we have these ideas and something that we don't have, we're always bringing those back to look, can we take your ideas and incorporate them in? Quarterly, there's a new release of ECR that's available to you and to everybody. And as we continue to enhance the software, those enhancements are provided to everybody, right? So oftentimes when we're talking about an idea, if we were onboarding you, for example, and we were talking about the lab discussion, I've got 3 agencies that are looking to do that. I would also have that discussion with you. And then when I have a requirement document that I've put together, I usually run that by those agencies that I know are interested in and get a buy-in from all, in this instance, let's call it 4 agencies, because I want it to work for everybody, not specific to one. You might be driving an enhancement, right? Which kind of gives you a little bit more say, but we also need to keep in mind that it's going to roll out to everybody so that when you get a future release, there are build notes. We do videos, seminars on it so that you know what's coming, and then you choose what will work for you, or there might be features that just don't apply and you're not interested in using.
Sure.
So in the instance right now, short term, I would say we're going to help you with FormLab to create those forms for your EKG. Maybe it's one or a combined form. If you create an electronic form and drop it on the chart, you capture it for patient record. You can report against it in Power BI. You build those on the fly, and then you would probably attach that as a supporting doc. You'd attach it to the chart. That would be my out of the box choice A.
Okay. For external referrals, I'm imagining that's all pretty standard. So we can put in a list of all of the local cardiologists and gastroenterologists we use, and then just click and send referral packages as needed to those specialty providers.
Yeah, commonly we put those in other organizations, and there's some other ways that we've handled those using Power BI. Using FormLab though. We give you the ability to go directly into. Let me move this out of the way. Lookup Manager is the table where all of our I'm going to call it ancillary tables reside. So, for example. a discharge status, right? There's a table for discharge statuses. We fill them with 5 common ones or 6 common ones, and you go in there and put the values that you want. Where are you going to find that? You're going to find that here. But we give you the ability to create a new table. So you can come in here, create that new table or use an existing table. Then when you're using the Formlab product, well, I'm logged in. I don't have a license. I'm not logged in as admin. When you're using the Formlab product to create whatever form you want, you can pull that value from the lookup table, which is a recommendation for reporting and so on. So I would suggest you create your own unique referral form. You'd use a lookup manager table, which means you don't have to go back and touch the form again as those change over time. Or if you have a couple new referrals, you're going to go add those to the table. You don't have to touch the form. Deploy the form to a chart or whatever programs you'd like to use that on. Does that sound what you're looking for?
Yeah, but again, and those things can all be pulled and then you know, e-fax to that external provider. So if I want to,
Yeah, yes and no. So commonly how that's handled is we'd get through what technology that you have. I don't have a per se interface to a faxing unit. But if you were using a multifunctional unit in the office, common agencies are, and they have a fax driver, and the fax driver is installed on your local machine, if I went file print to print that form and I chose the fax driver, it would send it to the fax machine and then out the door. So
okay.
I don't have an exact interface inside. There's ways around it though.
Okay, that answers my question.
Okay.
Give me just here.
Hello.
So, so the last question I have coming from my staff, and this probably would not be appropriate for right now. Would it be possible for us to set up a one-time demo where we basically literally just go through from admitting a patient all the way through, having them come in, have a visit, and then set up their next visits and any orders, just to kind of see what the process looks like for a single patient from start to finish?
Yeah, I would say if you want to put something together and get it to Chuck, he's just going to hand it off to Jonathan or I anyway. Put something together in paper. I would like to prepare for it. So put something together in paper. This is what I would like to see. Give us some examples. We can set that up.
Great. Thank you very much for answering all of our questions.
Thank you for your time and consideration. And Don, I think the answer is, or what you said was, thank you for answering all of our questions today. If you guys like this and we can do a follow-on, I'm sure there'll be many more questions. And hopefully we can answer them to your satisfaction. I think,
and again, I should, when I said thanks for asking all of our questions, I just mean that on behalf of our medical and primary care department. So I'm not speaking for other teams within the organization.
Okay.
I can tell you guys are just getting warmed up. Been a very good session and very interesting. I think my parting comment, and I apologize if I sounded defensive earlier, but we did start in behavioral health, and we've tried to adapt as our market has changed, and our customers, new customers and existing customers are adding more primary care. They added the MAT, and we do our best to accommodate them. And I think it's not so much saying no, it's just sometimes it's no right now because we don't have the resources, and we have roadmaps that we, you know, and commitments that we have to stick to. But because this market is growing, we're interested and we're pedaling as fast as we can, and we certainly want to accommodate you. I think a lot of your ideas are very good, as our other customers. Hopefully you liked what you saw, and as you folks caucus and talk amongst yourselves after we leave, if we do have a chance to carry on, I look forward to maybe seeing if we can flesh some of these out and, not only work with you with what we have, but grow together. So thank you for your time. Chuck, if you're still with us, why don't we circle back first part of next week, see what these guys have to say. And if it's positive, maybe we can look at that list for the follow-on demo and focus in on that, and then come back and talk about the billing and some of the other things, because, we spent, gosh, we're pushing 3 hours now, and we still have huge chunks that we didn't cover. But I hope this has been informative and has helped eliminate some of our capabilities and intent. And so thank you all very much for your time.
Appreciate your guys' time and flexibility. I think that we do definitely need to get through some things on revenue cycle. I'll follow up with Jason and Devon, see what we need to do on that. And then we'll see what we need to do, and, in terms of cleanup, to make certain we're checking all the boxes. But I think today was a very good view of the platform and flexibility. And I think we just got a few more boxes to check, and we'll find out what those are and sort them out.
Well, we're going to go back to our corner and catch our breath, and we're ready for the next round as soon as the bell rings.
Outstanding. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.